Hey y'all, it's Leah. Welcome back to my series on making an ideas book where we are creating templates for different junk journal elements with some directions that we can refer to in the future when we're doing journals. So today we are going to be making this fun little notepad. So it is made just out of a strip of double-sided paper, and we are using the coordinating, so the opposite sides of it to use for the little tabs and different things in there for the little closures. So we open it up and then we have just a fun little notepad on the inside that is removable. So if you run out of pages, you can always refill it. Okay, so let's get into making that. Set that to the side. So I've tried this a couple of different ways. This one was made with single-sided paper, not cardstock. I originally tried, I was doing a video and I tried to do it out of cardstock, and the cardstock, as I thought, when you crease it that much, did end up kind of splitting apart, and I don't like that look. So I went back to some double-sided paper. So this would be really great because I know getting double-sided paper is not always easy as far as like buying it in packs. But if you have a printer, this is where printables would come in really handy because you can just print some off. Okay, so these can be made in whatever size you want with some guidelines. Your length has to be 3 times your width. So in this case, I didn't want to do a ton of math. I've been really sick, as you can probably hear in my voice. And so I was just like, okay, I'm going to do 3 by 9 because I can do that amount of math right now in my head. But you can definitely, if you have like a 12-inch piece of paper, then that's going to allow you to make a bigger little notepad. But this pretty much is the size of like sticky notes. It's actually a little bit bigger than sticky notes, which is what a lot of people use as a notepad anyway. So I thought that was a fine size to use for that. So you're going to cut that down, and then you need to decide which one is going to be your inner part and then your outer part. So in this case, I want this to be my outside. This is going to be my inside. So you are going to do 2 score lines. You don't have to do this, but I just like to do it because it makes it easier for me to fold so that I don't have to like really get that. It helps me to be more precise with that. So I'm just going to score, being that mine is 3 inches by 9 inches, then I know I just need to score at 3, and then I'm going to flip it around and score at 3 again. Okay. Put that to the side, but I am going to keep my bone folder out. So to make this a little bit easier, I'm going to go ahead and fold those pieces over. If you wanted to ink, now would be a good time to do that. It actually would give you a little guideline. So I'm going to go ahead and do that because that helps you kind of see where you are going to do your folding. Okay. So what you're going to do is take this top left corner and you're going to fold it down to the bottom right of just that first square. So you're just making a little triangle, give it a good score or a good crease, and then go ahead and fold it over and crease again, just so it's laying nice and flat. And then you can go ahead and glue that little flap down. And I know I normally make these out of white paper, but I really wanted to remind myself of what it looks like to use the double-sided paper, just so I can see that part. So on this side, I'm doing the opposite. So I'm taking that bottom right corner and going up to the top left, because that's going to give us that cute little triangle opening. So again, doing a really nice crease there, folding it over, creasing again, and then gluing that down. All right. Oops. So that part is done for now. So we can kind of set this aside and we're ready to make our little notebook. So you're going to cut however many little pieces of paper you want. This is where you could use like coffee dyed paper, you could use lined paper. It doesn't even have to all be the same size. You can do different. That's kind of fun to have different types of paper. Even throw in some book page in there. It doesn't all have to be like usable paper. These are just fun little pieces that you can do. And I'm just having an idea. You could even do it so it's one of those like little fabric swatches. So it doesn't even have to be paper in there to make it a notepad. It could be like hidden fabric and things that you could kind of pull off and use in different places in your journal, things you could kind of snip off. So just a fun little idea. That's what I like about this, is you can always kind of come up with new ideas as you are kind of playing around. So I am going to go ahead and just use some, I think I had like 5 or 6 pages of all the same size paper, and I'm just using copy paper for this one. I went ahead and cut it at 2 7/8 just so it'll fit in there a little bit better and give me kind of, and obviously I cut that shorter than that. That was my plan, to do 2 7/8, but it must have been a little bit shorter. So you're gonna take a strip of this paper. This is the same paper that I used here. So I'm using the inside part so that it matches the inner part, but then when I make my strap to go around, it's going to have a contrasting piece on it. So the first thing I like to do when I have a little notebook like this is just put 2 staples across the top just to keep them in place. Then you don't have to glue every page together. And then I am going to take this. I cut a piece of a strip of paper that is 3/4 of an inch wide, and then I'm just gonna glue that down on there, add some glue to that, and just wrap this around. If you want to ink, you would definitely want to do that ahead of time. But I'm not inking on this one. So that's our little notepad there. And then we need to make a holder for this to go in here. So I cut another strip of that same paper, and I cut this one 1/2 inch wide. And then the measurement, I just did it the same length as the paper that I was using, because you really have to just kind of eyeball how you want this to go in. So you have 2 options of how you want to attach this. You can have it wrap all the way around to where your little notepad just slides in and out like this. I actually like to have my mechanism hidden, and so I just want to slide in the last page of that, so it's going to be a little bit tighter there. So I am just kind of wrapping this around just to give myself a measurement on there. And this is just going to get glued. This part's not really going to get seen, so it doesn't necessarily matter what it looks like. That was a lot of glue on there. So I'm going to do this out of the way. Okay. And I'm sliding that kind of up to the top because I don't want my notebook to slide down. I realized that when I did this other one that I had put this paper here, and then my notebook was kind of moving up and down. So I don't want that to happen. So I'm just going to glue this strip down to the inside of my little notepad holder. Press that down really well. And then now my whole little page can slide, my whole little notebook can slide in and out of there. Okay. So now we need to figure out, oh, this is why Oh goodness. So I hadn't scored for some reason. It hadn't actually scored on. That's why my sides were a little bit off. Okay. Bear with me. Things happen. We just make it work. We adapt. Okay. So now we are ready to do our wraparound piece. So again, you have some options with this. You can make a piece that goes around like this, and that just slides, so you'd have it connected in the back, and then your whole little book holder would slide in and out. Well, I want mine's going to be attached in my journal. So that would work, because you could just glue this part down and then your book could go ahead and slide in and out. But I actually want to make it like this, where I have a closure on it. And so this will still be glued down on it will just be glued down on the back here. And I can glue the whole thing down, or have some options with that. So I'll show you when we get it into the notebook. So again, I'm just sort of eyeballing on here as to where I want to attach. I'm going to attach a just a little Velcro dot on there. So you just want it so it overlaps a bit. And then I'm going to grab my 2 little pieces of Velcro, and I like to put them together first and then add them to my paper. So I usually add them to the top part first, and then I push it down on to the bottom. Okay, so that is done. That just opens up. We've got that. And then I will go ahead and just add a little bit of glue here, so that stays on when we are opening and closing our little booklet. Okay. So then I could take it a step further if I wanted to add something decorative here, like I did here. I just added a little die cut that I had. Whatever you want. You could even do magnets here. If you didn't want to do Velcro, you could do like a little notch kind of thing, where you cut a notch in the top. So the top piece would have it at the bottom, and the bottom piece would have it in the top. So those kind of slide together. So there's lots of different options for how you can close this. Okay. All right, let's go ahead and get our directions and get this into our journal. So you're going to cut your paper 3 times your final height. So my example was 3 by 9. You're going to score it in thirds. And the scoring is optional, so that's why I put the question mark. That always means optional. You're going to fold that top left corner down to your score line. You're going to fold your bottom right corner up to your score line, and then glue both of those flaps down. Then you're going to make your notepad by stapling some papers together at the top. Glue a 3/4 inch strip over the top, and then you're going to cut 2 1/2 inch strips for your inner and outer bands. Glue one of the bands in the center, and then slide your notepad in. And then for the outer band options, you can make a loop and slide your whole thing in, or you can add some Velcro or magnets as a front closure and then glue it on the back and then decorate as desired. All right, let's go ahead and get this into the journal. I'm going to put it on this side. We need kind of a big page to get all of that information on there. Add some glue. That down. Put a little title there. And then I said. So at this point, I'm going to turn this into a pocket as well. And so I'm just going to glue it like so. Make that a little pocket. So that way we can also stick something back there. Okay. All right. Well, I hope you enjoyed this little notepad holder, and hopefully you can make one of your own. So I'll see y'all next time. Bye.